Trillions of dollars a year are squandered by the U.S. government, and here it is yet again, the U.S. government approving a $1.1 trillion spending bill. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Lots to get to today, so let's cover it as quick as we can. And this is out of Street Talk Live, just basically trying to show you the estimate trajectory and then the crashes that occur afterwards. And right now, we are headed for a major collapse according to this. Now, of course, there's many different statistics that you can use, many different charts that you can use, but I just like to look at this, and it is very, very telling when you look at this, just these past two cycles, and you see something that is very, very clear. The higher up it spikes on the way up, the harder it crashes on the way down. And we see a major spike that has been occurring as a result of all the QE that has been taking place. This is something to look at right here. We also need to look at why stocks are rising, why things like this are happening. Let's take a look at the S&P, which as soon as Bullard said those comments that, they may engage in a QE4 if they need it and other things, and essentially at that point the stock market has been moving upward on pretty much a straight line here. It has been slowing down as of late, but it is still generally on the way up. And then you look at the 30-year yield, and it is not doing well at all. And these are, really a growing disparity in between the two. It is very unusual to see this occurring, so it is quite something that we need to watch for. Also, we need to look at the stock buybacks, in particular Apple doing a major buyback in the stocks, but it has been occurring in pretty much every sector around the world. You're seeing this happening right now, stock buybacks at a major level at this time. Throughout 2014, in fact. And, you generally don't see this when companies see future investment taking place. They usually use this money for these new projects that are coming up, but perhaps they're not seeing much of a future and they just want to take that money and put it back in and, buy back their own stock. Something very interesting to look at. Let's get into this right here, the big details for the day. The growth of the Social Security disability insurance has encouraged and has been encouraged by Trial Lawyers Inc. In 2013, more than $1.2 billion was paid out by SSDI to lawyers. $1.2 billion. This is an extremely high number. Now, we're talking about Social Security and how it is a burden ultimately to the government. But it's not just Social Security. We're looking at Medicare, we're looking at Medicaid, we're looking at all of the other systems that are being, put in place as welfare programs. We have the disability, we have the food stamp program, we have all of these foreign aid that is going over to these other countries around the world and is being squandered by them, not being used appropriately. We see this very clear with a certain country in the Middle East, and who I'm referring to right there, who uses multi-billion dollars of foreign aid not to feed the poor, but unfortunately for their military. Quite embarrassing to see that, in fact. So let's just move on quickly. A quote from my book, quoting Mark Faber, where he said the financial system went bust, but it was bailed out by the government. The next time the train stops is when the governments go bankrupt. And that day I really look forward to, because that is what they deserve. We're seeing such a large burden right now on the economy as a whole. The government's had to be there to basically backstop any of the problems, particularly with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Very easy to see that. All of these companies needed to be bailed out. And then we pile on top of that the derivatives problem that we're seeing, collateralized debt obligations. We're looking at the asset-backed securities, and it's all just piling up on top. And this is obviously a huge problem for the future when we see that companies are unable to do what they did before in the past because all the reality is gone. The train has left the station. We're looking at nothing right now. We're looking at ghost towns in China. We're looking at inflation rates that have gone dramatically high in Venezuela. We're looking at a deflation in Europe, and we're looking at no manufacturing left in the West. What else does the government have to do except print money and keep these interest rates low forever? So this is quite amazing to see what's happening all around the world. Many different reasons why we could have a collapse. And we are seeing right now the struggles of the government taking place. Let's look at this. Lawmakers agree on a 1.1 trillion with a T, spending bill. And they're going in here and saying that, look, we don't want to have a government shutdown. We need to raise the debt ceiling. We need to spend more money. We need to use this money because it is what we do. We need to use the money. Very important. Blah, blah, blah. You've heard it all before. How many times do they have to continue to raise the debt ceiling before you get tired of this? They reached over $18 trillion in the amount of debt. The GDP is not even at 18 trillion. It's gone over 100%. And that's the numbers they're showing us. We know it is so many times higher than that when you include the unfunded liabilities. So how can somebody possibly realistically and honestly say that everything will be okay as long as we could just make it over this hump, make it over this hurdle? But that hurdle is many times larger than the US itself. It is just simply impossible. And once this comes to fruition, once it becomes a reality to the general public, we're going to have a major collapse. It's pretty amazing to see this right before our very eyes. This right here is out of the Washington Times quoting Obama. I have to read it all. Let's go through and break it down. This is what he said. It's insane. It's true. A future administration might try to reverse some of our policies. I'm going to stop right there. He said policies because they're not laws. They don't put this into law. It's just a policy. It's just a regulation. That's the way they do this, because even sometimes they can't get it into the law because it is too extreme even for these criminals in high places. Let's move on. But I'll be honest with you, the American people basically have a good heart and want to treat people fairly, and every survey shows that if, in fact, I'm going to stop right there just for a second, he tries to spin it, and all of the people in positions of power like this always spin it around to make you think that if you disagree with what he's saying, then you're a bad person. So let's move on. Somebody has to come out and subject themselves to a background check, registered, paid their taxes. The American people support allowing them to stay. So any future administration that tried to punish people for doing the right thing, I think, would not have the support of the American people. So right there, again, he first of all starts and finishes off with the same thing, trying to make you feel bad that if you don't want large amounts of money to be basically put into areas that it really could be used elsewhere, then you're a bad person, and so on and so forth. This is the way the government does things. They use money inappropriately. They spread wealth around to areas that you really don't want to have, and they're doing this without your consent. They spend trillions of dollars every single year, and the government does not make that amount of money. So this debt keeps piling up and ultimately is a burden upon the taxpayer, but we will not see this ever being paid back. It's not as if the next generation can pay it back. It's never going to happen like that. Let's move on right here. GOP Spending Bill gives nearly $1 billion to aid the border migrants. This is incredible. $1 billion. Let's read it on where they said the GOP's draft of the 2015 Omnibus Spending Bill reportedly includes $948 million to help poor and unskilled Central American migrants establish themselves in the United States. So if you didn't like the immigrants coming over, you are now officially paying $1 billion of your tax money to make sure that not only that they stay in the United States, that they are kept well and under comfortable conditions. This is pretty amazing. Just one example of how the U.S. government and other governments, of course, not just the U.S., uses money inappropriately, uses it to ways that many people would disagree with. It is quite amazing to see this. We are facing historic times right now. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up, and of course subscribe to the videos. There are now well over 10,000 subscribers here at the Money GPS YouTube channel, and I hope if you're not already that you will become one. And of course, you need to become an insider. It's where I give out all my best intel for free. That is available at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.